So what can you do when you're no longer building muscle despite following all the basics? When you're consistent, you have a routine, you're logging your workouts, you're trying to beat the logbook, but then you look at your physique over the last 6 months to a year and you barely see any progress. Well, I've done this for 12 years now, and in these 12 years, I've gone from a weak, skinny computer engineer to carrying a pretty decent amount of muscle for someone who's doing this naturally. And during these 12 years, I've definitely had periods where gains have slowed down and I've hit some pretty rough plateaus. And in this video, I want to share with you the 5 things that I look at to break through my plateaus that you can also use in your routine to start seeing some new gains. So let's dive right into it. The first thing that you gotta look at is actually what is happening in the gym. And this is where I see a lot of really good programs completely fall apart. Because when it comes to training, you have what you need to do and then how you're supposed to do it. And the execution part is really where a lot of people are struggling. And there are 2 main areas. One is the technique and how good are you at each exercise, because each exercise is a skill that you need to practice and improve. And then the second is the level of effort that you're investing in each rep and each set. And when it comes to execution, there's a level of self-deception where most people think they're way better at doing their program than they really are. And as Professor Richard Feynman said, the first principle is you must not fool yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool. So we have to start with some honesty here. How good is your form, for example, in the second half of a set when you're nearing failure, when things get hard? Are you cutting corners? Are you looking for ways to make the movement easier and trying to reduce the range of motion or trying to add momentum? How about your mental focus? Are you losing count of the reps because your mind is just wandering around? How about the third set of an exercise or the last quarter of a workout session when you're more fatigued? How about your level of effort? Are you really taking those sets near failure or just giving up when they get a little bit more difficult? When was the last time you tested your limits and really gone all out and try to get as many reps as possible with good form to see where you stand? How about your rest periods? Are you resting enough between sets or are you cutting those short, rushing the workout, leading to lower quality sets? You might not need more sets. You might just need better sets. And I've seen many people over the years who didn't change their program at all. They just improved their execution, they started hitting the like button, and suddenly they started breaking through their plateaus and getting more gains. Now, the second thing you should look into if you got stuck is your training approach. Because if you've been consistent and you're confident that you're executing the lifts correctly, well, in that case, you might have hit a wall with how far you can go with your current training program. And if that's true, I recommend looking into 2 main variables to break this plateau. The first one is your training volume. The second one are your rep ranges. In practice, this means that if you're currently doing a high volume training program where you're hitting each body part between 15 to 20 sets per week, maybe even more, you might benefit from a phase where you're hitting each body part with 10 to 12 sets per week, where you're doing a lower volume phase. And this is not only going to give your body a bit of a break from that high volume, especially your connective tissue, but it's also going to teach you to really appreciate the more limited amount of sets that you have to try to make the most out of every single set. On the other hand, when we're talking about rep ranges, if you're primarily training in the 12 to 15 or 10 to 12 rep range, you may benefit from moving some of your compound lifts down to 6 to 8 or 4 to 6 reps. And this will be more strength-based work where you can get stronger. And then later, when you return to higher rep work, you will be able to use heavier loads. And if you're someone newer to training, this can do wonders to help you overcome fear of lifting heavier weights and make you more comfortable. So if you've never done a proper strength phase, I highly recommend trying this out because it will really benefit you. You will get a couple new PRs, you will get more excited about training again, and over the long term, it will lead to more gains. Now, the third thing we need to talk about is your nutrition. One of the biggest mistakes that I see when people get into a caloric surplus to build more muscle is how they distribute their calories. So they'll typically have 1 or 2 days which are really high in calories, and then for the rest of the week, they have to lower those calories in order to prevent unnecessary fat gain. Otherwise, they're gonna be gaining too fast. But the thing is, your body can only use so much of that surplus on any given day because your muscle protein synthesis is only elevated about 24 hours if you're a little bit more experienced. So if you're eating a ton of calories on a Saturday, and maybe that Saturday is a rest day, your body is not really able to use most of those calories to grow. And then you're cutting calories on the workout days, which are typically during the week, and then you're also missing out on that potential there. The other macro level mistake that I see are a lot of people who are in what I call perma cutting. So those are kind of in between. They're not bulking, they're not cutting, they're not lean enough, at least not as lean as they want it to be, and they also don't want to commit to a proper lean bulk because they're still wanting to get leaner. So they're kind of in between, getting nowhere. And if that's you, I highly recommend that you commit to something, whether finish your cut or do a lean bulk, but do something to improve your physique. Now, besides your training and nutrition, the other leverage point you have to build more muscle is your sleep. And what personally gets me in trouble with sleep is that I love to stay up at night. I'm reading books. I love listening to podcasts, to audiobooks. So this is where an extra 15 minutes turns into an extra 30 minutes, then it's 45 minutes, and suddenly I'm missing out on an hour of sleep. So I have to consistently remind myself that I'm gonna regret it tomorrow for staying up late, and my performance is gonna be worse, and I'm gonna be missing out on stuff. So I'm trying to move that regret from tomorrow to now to get myself to bed on time. And with sleep deprivation, we have two major issues. On one side, we have poor recovery, which leads to worse performance. On the other hand, we have worse nutrient partitioning and decreased muscle protein synthesis, which means that in a calorie deficit, you're going to be losing more muscle and less fat. And in a caloric surplus, you're going to be storing more fat and building less muscle, which is a really bad situation to be in. And when it comes to improving your sleep, the first step that I recommend is to start tracking your sleeping behavior. And you can do this using an Apple Watch or a fitness tracker. If you don't have access to any of those devices, you can simply write down when you've gone to bed and how many hours you spent in bed, and you can look at the overall trend, because it's really important that you establish a consistent routine, that you're going to bed at a similar time every single day. And once you have a routine established, then you can start optimizing that routine. And a couple of other things that have really helped me a lot. First is to do an early morning walk to get exposure to some daylight, keeping the bedroom dark, cool, and quiet, making sure that I stop any liquid intake about 2 hours before bed so I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night, using the bedroom only for sleep and some cardio. On top of that, making sure I'm not doing anything stressful right before bed. So about 30 minutes before, I have my little ritual, I calm down, and then I can go to sleep. And in general, I found that if I cannot get enough sleep at night, I can always throw in a little bit of a nap before a workout or in the early afternoon, and that also helps a lot. With sleep, I found that every little bit that I can invest to improve my sleep pays off a lot. And it's not just when it comes to training and nutrition. It's mental clarity, it's productivity. Literally every aspect of your life will be better if you improve your sleep. Now, the fifth element we have to talk about now, which can seriously limit how much muscle you're gonna build and keep you in a plateau, is psychological stress. Consistent psychological stress can overwhelm your recovery capacity and reduce your performance even if you're sleeping well, your nutrition is dialed in, and you're following a good training routine. And the thing with stress is that it's a part of life. The more successful you are, the more responsibilities you're gonna get, and the more stress you're gonna have to deal with. So it's really something we have to learn how to manage. And when it comes to stress, the way I see it, the energy we put into things that we can't control comes at the expense of the things that we can control. And if I'm dealing with a very stressful situation, I like to use a triage approach and give myself 3 different options. One is if the situation is in my control and if it's worth fixing, then I'm gonna be very proactive and work super hard to find a solution. Now, if the situation is in my control, but if it's not really worth fixing, then I'm just gonna accept that certain things are imperfect the way they are, and I'm just gonna move on. And if the situation is outside of my control, well, then there's no point worrying about it anyway. Aside from the mindset, I personally found that walking on a regular basis is a great way to clear my head, stay relaxed, and stay very creative. I'm sure other enjoyable activities work as well. And the point of this is to stay really proactive and engaged and make sure that you're managing your stress levels and being aware of them so you can see more gains. And the other thing, of course, that's going to help you see more gains is making sure you hit that subscribe button below, name notifications by hitting the bell icon. Details for coaching if you want to work with me are in the description below. Also leaving another helpful video here for you at the end. So check out the video and I'm going to see you right there.